Good evening, guys. I'm Rodney Josephson. I'm going to start describing each section of the book that I mentioned I have authored or co-authored with other colleagues. This is the title of the book, Chinese Innovation and Branding Leaps. Here is my chapter, which is chapter 7. As you can see, I guess. I should be able to see it. I can't see it. Can you see it? Yeah, anyway. Using neuro-linguistic programming to build the foundation of brands. A guide for Chinese firms. Now, as I mentioned in the former video, that this book, or my chapter, can be based on any language. There's only an example of how the translation or the adaptation of an idea through language or image or brand, how that would be translated in the market or culture where you're planning to start that brand. So basically, what we're attempting to do is to have an idea that was created in one culture, obviously, and then send it to another culture and have such a foundation that it is adapted by the new culture. That's easier said than done, so that's what we're getting into this. Now, in the introduction, I get into an example of a Chinese company that had a food product, and it's basically a shredded meat. Now, the Chinese characters are, of course, the main character across the page, and you can see that in the picture right here. That's the Chinese, these are the Chinese characters, and underneath it is the translation. Now, this product was sold in international markets, obviously, Southeast Asia, and I don't know where else they exported the product to. Unfortunately, the translation of this product was not done properly. Now, shredded meat product for children. That's the actual, like the name of the, or what the product is. It's called shredded meat product for children. That's the way it theoretically should have been translated. Unfortunately, the translators translated it as child shredded meat. Now that's a little bit funny there, isn't it? Child shredded meat. So in other words, the container contains the meat of a child, or many children, I suppose. Now, I don't think it's going to sell very well abroad, or unless, no. In fact, today I would imagine it probably would sell quite well because the kind of people we got running around. Anyway, that being said, my chapter is pretty much based on neuro-linguistic programming or linguistics in branding, and what that implies in terms of when you're going from one language to another, are you able to translate that, the see, feel, hear, smell, and taste properly so that the receiving party knows what you're talking about and it fits this original brand idea. Because if you go into a new market and your image doesn't fit the culture, or your branding or your language doesn't fit the culture you're going into, it's not going to sell very well. So that's the general introduction of the chapter. And based on using NLP-based methods and tools, as one example, we can help to create a defined brand image using that as a resource. Okay, we're going to get into section 2 of my chapter, which is brand image, how an impression is formed in the mind. So, impressions are what you experience when you meet something for the first time, as an example. Now, before we get into that, I have a little tidbit of wisdom. When you master your mind, you master your world. Language and images program the mind. Thus, to control the language input, one controls the output and behavior. So, in other words, we need to master what language we use and how we use it in our brain so that we are then in control of the language so that we can control the output and get results that we expect. And that's kind of like NLP. That is a method, tool to manipulate, if you will, or modify or understand what's going on. Now, in section 2, I discuss how brands, when you're starting off with a brand or a brand image or trademark or what have you, you're in a new market, you're forming this trademark or brand. Well, behind the scenes, they're the big corporate entities that control the market, and most people don't know that really they do that, or they think they can go out and start up any business and become a billionaire. No, it doesn't work that way. So, in other words, when you're going to launch this new idea, you got to make sure that the guys hiding in the lawyers hiding on the sidelines, ready to jump on you. You have to make sure you know what you're doing and be prepared to take on the consequences. So, as an example, I give two brands, Andale energy drink versus Red Bull. Red Bull accused Andale energy drink of using its image as confusing. Thus, that brand was accused of borrowing the image from Red Bull, which is bull. Anyway, these are just the tactics that large corporations can pull or use in business because they have the money, they have the lawyers, and the capabilities to do that. So, in other words, in summary, you just need to know that these things will come, and you have to be prepared for them. Now, as it continues on, a brand image again is something that is formed in the mind, and that's based on your experiences, what you've learned through your senses: seeing, feeling, hearing, smelling, and tasting. So when something new comes along, you're experiencing that through your mind or your eyes, let's say. Now, is that what the brand image creator is attempting to influence? Is it going to fit your model of the world or not? So we need to understand how this works when you're going to create a new brand or modify an old brand or image or what have you. So I get into the details of how NLP was generally created and how to understand what NLP is in terms of forming memory and your interactions with another party in the linguistic level and other levels of communication. Yeah. Yeah, generally that's what in part two, it's just the foundation of how we're attempting to start to build a brand based on the NLP model or concept, however you'd like to think about that. Now, NLP basically is neuro-linguistic programming. It encompasses the senses, your see, feel, hear, smell, and taste, how those interact, through communication, how each receiver might take it differently because they learn differently. That means that I might be a feeler versus a seer, and some people might be, they like to use their senses of smell and taste over, listening or seeing. So everyone learns a little bit different, but overall we're learning in many ways. So we do got to take that into account when we're making a brand, and advertising through television or what have you. Yeah, so I continue down down that path of what John Grinder and for example O'Connor and other NLPers define what these senses mean in our world or in the world that we live in and how we use them. So I'm going to give you an example of a service company. For example, in school they taught you that, if you ever studied marketing, that a service is not it's not real. It doesn't exist. A pure service, like insurance. There's nothing there. It's an idea. However, that's not the case, because an image or a brand can be constructed through language or through a media process that builds a mental model which becomes a brand or a product. It's an imaginary thing, but in your mind it's like a package. So you're creating a package that's formed in the mind, and it brands it in your brain. So as an example of Allstate insurance, you're in good hands with Allstate. So we got the feeling you're in good hands with Allstate. So I feel good with Allstate. Now we have the insurance agent. We have the TV commercials. We have the people interacting on the program. So all these things are like building a mental picture in your mind. Thus, it's creating a product that gives returns when you need that, and that's what we're talking about here. This is the neurological linguistic programming of a person. A person is a mask, by the way, of the mind. And that's how it works. So this is sheer manipulation, or creation, or however you want to look at it, creativity. Now, so with all those interacting parts, all those interacting parts, you create a brand that will stick in the mind of the consumer. Now, or whether that's good or bad, who knows? And whether the product is going to sell or not, who knows? Maybe you put a bad image in the mind and they don't buy your product or service. So it goes both ways. However, throughout this book I'll show you the methods that most companies are using, which would seem illogical or confusing, but that's what tricks the mind. Gets you hooked like a fish. So basically, the foundation of creating a brand, it's mainly this image and linguistics. For example, we got KFC. It's finger licking good. So what's finger licking good? It meaning the chicken, I presume, which obviously it was originally. Now, can you translate that in a different culture? for example, in the United States, we like to eat with our hands, but if you go to some cultures, they would rather eat with chopsticks or something else. So they're not going to get the idea, what is finger licking good? It might make them, sick. Basically, now in Southeast Asia, they like to use plastic gloves when they go to eat food. And, they pick things up with these plastic gloves. I don't know if that's really healthy to have plastic in your food all the time, but that's what they do. Now, they're not going to get the idea of finger licking good because they think using your hands to eat is disgusting. So, anyway, KFC does have finger licking good in Southeast Asia. Well, they like the chicken anyway. I don't know if they like that particular slogan. This is what you call well, we can say that there's the phonetic or metaphor or other kind of hidden meanings or other meanings related to that, which are hooks in themselves for the creation of a brand. That being said, we need to fully understand the destination culture in a way that we have the feeling that this thing could work. Now, if I'm just a native from country A and I'm going to a new country B and I have no clue what that culture is about, that is like having a crusade into another culture and forcing things down people's throats. It generally doesn't work that way, and there are tens of hundreds of good examples of company failures, even at large corporations, Coca-Cola, whatever. They go into a new country and they create this brand, and they didn't realize that slogan that they have in the new language might mean, like I remember there was a product called Mist. Now, Mist in German means urine or like pee. Maybe it's sold good for the S&M clubs or something like that, but the general population probably reacted negatively, and yes, that the product didn't sell. So it does have an effect. So in summary, that is part 2 of this book. So I'm going to cut this off now because it's getting too long, and we'll start a new video of the next part 3, NLP, the neuroscience of marketing. Now you can ask questions, type in a message, give your opinion, views, like the page. Please do. You can send me donations as well. So thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good night.